The third episode of House of the Dragon Season 1 is titled Second of His Name. The episode begins with Daemon riding out to the Stepstones on Dragonback and wreaking havoc on the Triarchy pirates in the middle of the night. After some casualties, the pirates flee from the shore and retreat to their caves to survive the dragon's onslaught. However, some pirates perched on higher ground start shooting flaming arrows at Daemon and his dragon. One of them also hits his armor. Daemon calls Prince Drahar out to come face him, but due to the oncoming influx of the arrows, Daemon is forced to retreat. Fast forward some years, King Viserys and Alicent's son, Prince Aegon, is now 2 years of age, and Alicent is pregnant with the king's second child. Lord Hightower had already started planting the seeds in the king's head to name Aegon the king's heir. On Aegon's second name day, the king organizes a hunt out in Kingswood to celebrate the occasion. Rhaenyra is also forced to go on the hunt against her will, because the king wants the whole family to be there. When they get to Kingswood, Rhaenyra is approached by Lord Jason Lannister. He offers the princess the finest wine of Casterly Rock, home of the Lannisters, and then tells her that he'll do anything for his queen or future wife. This angers Rhaenyra, and she goes to confront her father. Rhaenyra shouts at her father and asks him if he brought her along to parade her in front of the lords and sell her off to the Lannisters. The king, angered, tells her that it's her duty to marry someone sooner rather than later, and Jason Lannister is an excellent match. All of this commotion happens in front of all the nobles present there. Rhaenyra storms outside, gets on her horse, and rides away in anger. Seeing this, Sir Criston Cole follows her and manages to save her just before she runs her horse into a lake. After night falls, Sir Criston urges Rhaenyra to head back to the camp as it might be dangerous in the woods at this time of the night with predators prowling around. Rhaenyra, however, refuses to go back. Sir Criston hears the snapping of twigs behind him. He takes his sword out to defend the princess against the oncoming trouble. However, a wild boar comes out, knocks him off his feet, and goes straight for Rhaenyra. When all seems lost, and the boar gets on top of Rhaenyra and is about to attack her, Sir Criston stabs the boar with his sword and knocks it off Rhaenyra. Angered, Rhaenyra stabs the boar again and again and again as blood pours all over her face and clothes. They put the slain boar on a wooden cart and roll it back to the camp. It is quite a spectacle as a bloody Rhaenyra walks triumphantly through all the men there after having slayed a beast. The king has all his advisors whispering ideas in his ear about who Rhaenyra's husband should be. Lord Jason Lannister brings a spear forged from the finest steel so that the king can use it for his hunt. Jason Lannister again puts his proposal forward to marry the princess, but the king doesn't like how he's so full of himself, and later, when he's gone, he says to Lord Hightower, "The man's pride has pride." Lord Hightower himself had ideas on who the princess should marry. He puts forth the suggestion that Rhaenyra should marry the 2-year-old Prince Aegon, which shocks the king as well. The king outright dismisses this suggestion. Lord Strong puts forward the most logical suggestion that Rhaenyra should marry Sir Laenor Velaryon, son of Lord Corlys. This would bring the two estranged houses together and help strengthen the realm. The king says he'll think about this and retires to his chambers. A bit later, the king calls Rhaenyra to talk to her. He first scolds her for heedlessly heading into the woods by herself. He says to her that Daemon is enough of a thorn in his flesh, and she must be one too. Rhaenyra shouts at her father that ever since his son was born, he wants him to replace her as the heir. The king swears on the happy memories of Rhaenyra's mother that as long as he's alive, no one will supplant her as his heir. He also tells her that she must marry sooner or later, and she is free to choose whomever she wants her husband to be. Happy, Rhaenyra exits the room. Afterwards, the king retires to his chambers and confides in his wife, Alicent. He tells her that he's received a letter from Vaemon Velaryon, the brother of the sea snake, Lord Corlys. He's requested the king to help him in the fight in the Stepstones. Alicent reads the letter too and exclaims that Velaryons and Daemon are losing the war quite badly, and asks the king why he can't just send men to help them out. Viserys says that because it's a war waged by two malcontents against the wishes of the crown, and if he sends his army now, the crown will seem weak. The king says that he's torn between what to do, as whatever he does, he's bound to anger one party to appease the other. Alicent poses a simple question in front of him. Is it better for the realm if the crab feeder survives, or if he's killed? This puts the king's mind at ease, and he sends a letter to Daemon via his messenger. When the messenger delivers the letter to Daemon, it says that he's sending 2,000 foot soldiers as well as many ships to aid him in his war. This angers Daemon, who thwarts the messenger again and again before storming off. Meanwhile, at the Stepstones, Lord Vaemon tells Lord Corlys that they've got barely a fortnight's ration left, and they're losing badly, which the crab feeder also knows. Whatever they do, the pirates just run into their caves. Vaemon says that they need to bait the crab feeder out of there. Vaemon asks who is mad enough to walk in there and happily march to his death. Laenor Velaryon gives the name of Daemon for this cause. After reading his brother's letter, an angry demon walks into the Stepstones. He finds a white cloth and makes a flag of it, as if to say he comes with peace. However, when the crab feeder sends his soldiers forward, he picks his sword up and slaughters the pirates by the dozen. Surviving the onslaught of the arrows, he keeps on slaughtering the pirates. The crab feeder sends more and more men forward, which all end up getting cut in half by Daemon's blade. However, Daemon's luck soon runs out, and he's hit by an arrow. Daemon barely scrambles to safety. Seeing Daemon hurt, almost everyone in the Triarchy comes out of the caves and surrounds him. Little did they know what was about to happen to them. A dragon rider flies on top of them and starts burning the Triarchy pirates. Seeing this, the Valyrian army also comes running in and starts killing any Triarchy soldier they see. A bloody battle ensues, which the Valyrians win. Seeing this, the crab feeder Prince Drahar flees into the caves, and Daemon chases after him. He gets him, kills him, and drags his body out into the waters with his guts flinging out of his body in a fitting end to the war. This concludes the third episode of House of the Dragon Season 1. The fourth episode of House of the Dragon Season 1 is titled King of the Narrow Sea. The episode starts off with Rhaenyra hearing marriage proposals from lords all over the Seven Kingdoms. A lord even older than her father himself puts his hand forward for marriage, while after him, a mere kid, Lord of Blackwood, gives his speech. His speech is interrupted by another lord, which causes the Blackwood kid and the other lord to draw their swords at each other. Seeing this, Rhaenyra has had enough, and she orders her ship to be readied to take her back to King's Landing, despite the efforts of Sir Criston. On their journey over to King's Landing, a dragon flies over their ship, barely missing the hull of the ship. It also causes Rhaenyra to tumble and bang her head on the wood. She soon realizes it's Daemon's dragon, and he's arriving at King's Landing after a long hiatus. Daemon appears in Viserys' court, weapon in hand and wearing a crown of his own. The king sees that and asks him if he calls himself king now too. Daemon says that they now call him the King of the Narrow Seas, but even he recognizes that there's only one true king, and he bends his knee in front of Viserys. The king asks him where Corlys is, and Daemon tells him that he sailed back to Driftmark. When asked about who's defending the Stepstones then, Daemon replies that it's being defended by the tides and the corpses of 2,000 Triarchy soldiers staked to the sand for anyone to see and not even think of doing something like this again. Hearing this, the king embraces him in front of the whole court and lets Daemon know that the entire realm is in great debt to him. Meanwhile, at the next small council meeting, Lord Hightower has alarming news. He tells the king that his brother has sent word from Hightower that Lord Corlys has sought out the hand of the daughter of the King of Braavos, one of the major free cities, for his son Laenor. If this happens, they're going to have to seek out a marriage pact of their own with the free cities, which alarms Rhaenyra, who's just sitting there listening to all this. Afterwards, Rhaenyra goes to her room, where Ser Criston is watching outside. She goes inside to find a duffel bag with a hat and a commoner's clothes inside. It also has a small note with a drawing on it, with an X marked on it. Rhaenyra soon realizes that the drawing is of her room, and the X is marked just a little right of her bed. She goes to that part of her room and moves the furniture from in front of it, only to notice that it's a door to a secret passageway. She goes inside, and at the end of the tunnel, she sees Daemon standing there, waiting for her. Daemon takes Rhaenyra, who's now disguised as a common boy, out of the palace walls and into the city. He takes her through the hustling and bustling streets of the city, and Rhaenyra experiences the nightlife of the commoners for the first time in her life. They go watch a theater show, and Rhaenyra experiences the different vices present in the city as well. The fast-paced scene beautifully depicts the life of the common folk outside the walls of King's Landing. At one point in the night, Rhaenyra frees herself from Daemon's hand and runs off into the streets after stealing from a corner shop. She runs into Sir Harwin there and orders him to keep quiet and not tell anyone. Sir Harwin sees Daemon approaching and understands what's happening there, so he lets them be and walks off. Daemon takes Rhaenyra to the brothel, where he tells her that mating is a pleasure and Rhaenyra is again fascinated. He takes off the hat she's wearing so that she's completely recognizable to everyone. They draw nearer to each other and start kissing passionately, but Daemon abruptly backs off and leaves her there, almost entirely disrobed. Hurt and disgruntled, Rhaenyra makes her way back to the palace and her room, where a baffled Sir Criston sees her going into her room. Rhaenyra steals her helmet playfully, and when Sir Criston asks for it, she throws it onto the ground and asks him to pick it up. She kisses him and starts taking his armor off. Hesitant at first, Sir Criston also kisses her back eventually, and they take their clothes off and make love to one another passionately. The next day, Lord Hightower catches wind of all this and is informed by one of his spies that Rhaenyra had sex with Daemon in front of the whole brothel. He goes immediately to tell the king. He stutters to find the correct words to tell the king what actually happened. After the king orders him to speak plainly, he hesitantly tells him that his spy saw Rhaenyra and Daemon coupling. The king, in utter shock and disarray, refuses to believe the Lord Hand at first. However, Otto Hightower tells him that his sources haven't led him astray yet, and he can do his own investigations as well. Alicent, who happened to be in the room, overhears all this. She immediately goes to find Rhaenyra and asks her if she's had sex with Daemon. Rhaenyra outright refuses this and tells her that yes, she was wandering outside the walls, and Daemon did take her to a brothel. But once they got there, Daemon ignored her for a whore and left her stranded. Alicent believes her and goes to tell the king of this. The king, however, quickly summons Daemon to his court and asks him if he had sex with his daughter while kicking him again and again. A drunk Daemon confesses to this. The king says that he's blemished her name, and now no lord in the Seven Kingdoms is going to want Rhaenyra as their bride, as she's not a maiden anymore. Daemon instead tells the king to marry Rhaenyra to him instead, and they'll rule over the Seven Kingdoms together. Hearing this, the king banishes Daemon again and tells him to go to the Vale to his lawful wife. Subsequently, the king calls Rhaenyra for an audience. He tells her that she is going to perform her duty by marrying Ser Laenor Velaryon by the order of the king. Rhaenyra says that she will gladly perform her duty, but tells her father that the king surrounds himself with people who are too self-absorbed with their own interests above the interest of the court. Rhaenyra tells the king that she'll do her duty, but first, the king must do his duty as well. Later, the king calls for Lord Hightower and tells him that he put his own ambition over the crown. He says that Alicent was a calculated distraction he sent, and he's only started to realize that now. In a shocking twist, the king relieves Lord Hightower from his duties as the Hand of the King. This concludes the 4th episode of House of the Dragon Season 1.